We're back on XL 10 Minute Leaders Live. My name is Graham Brown. 10 minutes, we invite the leaders in their respective domains to come onto this show and share with us, the audience, their wisdom, their finding, their writings, in some case, if they are authors, to help us improve in all aspects of life, technology, business, society. Joined today by Fred Copestake, based in the UK. Fred, welcome to the show.
No, brilliant. Thank you for inviting me, Graham.
It's great to have you here. We're going to talk about sales and partnership. Now, if you're in business, sales is everything. It's the lifeblood of business. So we all need to know about it, how to do it, and often what people get wrong about it. It seems to be something that gets a bit of a bad rap. And I say that as a sales guy for many years. So I understand when you mention sales, what people will be thinking. But without sales, there is no business. So Fred, help us explode some of these myths in the next 10 minutes. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, then.
Hopefully people haven't turned off straight away because we said sales.
No, they should be listening because sales is everything. We all live by selling.
They should be turning it up.
Exactly. They should be sticking around for the after hours party that goes with this podcast as well. Here we go. Question number 1. What does it say on your business card, Fred?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I can't think when I last used one.
Right.
We've been locked down so long here, and I've gone pretty much virtual 100% now. But I think it's literally just got my name and contact details. I'm not kind of massively into titles. It would say founder, I guess, founder of Brindis. Though, to be honest, I'd probably just go with sales trainer because that's what I do. And I think when we overcomplicate things, people don't really understand and kind of don't want to ask anymore in case they get embarrassed. So yeah, founder or sales trainer.
Gotcha. The thing about sales is that it goes through this cycle, doesn't it? When you start out in business, you call yourself a salesperson. Then you go through this thing about title inflation and you want to become business development or chief revenue officer. But I find from my experience, when people get to a certain level of accomplishment, they're happy to call themselves sales. They're like, this is what I do. I'm not going to dress it up in something else. So you seem to be comfortable calling yourself a sales trainer. What do you actually do?
Yeah, well, it does what it says on the tin. That's why when I've done this, Graham. I kind of was the performance enhancement sales solution principal consultant guru, whatever. I didn't even understand myself what I was doing. So how could I expect anyone else to? No, so really, it is sales training. It's helping salespeople in B2B complex sales. And so complex for me is based on they'll tend to be higher value, a longer sales cycle, more people involved. I help them get up to date and more modern because I think a lot of people are kind of stuck using old-fashioned stuff that isn't as effective now. And so if we can get people doing more collaborative no, it's more to do with the sales techniques and sales has evolved over the years and people can kind of get stuck in a generation. And though I'm not saying you throw the baby out with the bathwater, you definitely want to move, take some of the things from the past. If you're only doing that, you're missing the point of how sales has really evolved, and it's quite a sophisticated activity now. And if you try to do it too simplistically, that's probably where you're failing.
Well, we shall talk about the new way of doing sales, obviously, and your book and your writing and your training. It's all coming out. A little bit of background for myself. I confess for my sins, starting out as a sales guy, phoning through the phone book in the old days where you could actually connect with people. I distinctly remember my boss saying to me, doesn't matter, you can, you're self-employed here. You can do as many calls as you like, but you're not allowed to go home until you do 120 a day. It was one of those, selling life assurance and pensions of all things over the phone. It gives sales a bad rap, doesn't it? And I feel that we're kind of paying the price for that. But I did learn a lot about sales, though, I have to say. Do you ever get those kind of pushbacks when you mention sales?
Yeah, you do, because people who don't understand it as a profession and probably don't really recognize the as you said in the introduction, how vital it is for businesses, they'll kind of associate it with when they're sat down, so having the dinner or watching the favorite soap opera or whatever, and somebody's ringing up trying to flog them double glazing or whatever, and they've got it, they don't need it, they're not interested, the timing's wrong. And what I would say to professional salespeople, people in business, it's we should be talking to people that do need what we sell. I mean, they might not realize, but it's we're working on a professional level. We're not interrupting where there's never going to be any progression, and it's a pure numbers game. The numbers game is one of the old-fashioned things that I push back against.
Yeah, that's where I came from. And I learned.
It is activity. So what? Okay, you need to do loads and loads of calls. All right, well, they're hard. I'll ring my mum, ring my mates. Yeah, well, there you go. I'll take a load of calls. Yeah. Well, because it doesn't matter what I say. Is if you're only measuring the metric, which kind of doesn't make any sense. Surely we should be looking at the output. What's the outcome? What do we want? Right. Well, let's do things which are going to help that.
Okay, so you're the master sales trainer in this scenario, and I would like to tap into your superpower, Fred, and advise me in my sales. So my business sells to enterprise. So it's a B2B sale. We sell podcasts to large corporates and large enterprise. And as you can imagine, it's everything that you say. It's a complex sale, many people involved, long sales cycle that takes months as opposed to days. It's paid obviously through procurement. So you've got all those kind of hoops to jump through rather than just give me a credit card. We don't have that luxury. So you've got all of that. If you had a client like me, I know we're short on time and it's a bit unfair to ambush you with such a short bandwidth to give an answer. What would you first look at, and how would you sort of, looking at this kind of setup, where are the typical issues that our kind of business has?
You're well on the way, because you understand decision-making units, you understand that it is going to take longer, that different people have got different needs, and this is all part of how we can collaborate better. So the superpower, if you like, is helping people to be more modern by being more collaborative. For me, that's where the latest evolution of sales is. It's becoming more collaborative. So, if we had time, I'd take you right through the sort of the evolutions of sales, where we'll talk about consultative selling, which is asking better questions, value-based selling, where it's really defining with customers what the value actually is, making sure that you position yourself as somebody that they perceive as being able to even bring that to them. So we kind of get into that personal branding piece. But for me, the collaborative bit, the way of kind of getting your mindset and ethos to be that I want to work together with somebody, that changes your behaviors. It changes how you think or how you do and how they will perceive you. And so what I do to sort of bring that into the sales training is I get people to focus on a thing called partnering skills, or partnering quotient, PQ, which when you break down the main elements of it, it really does give you the right kind of way of working. It gets you to think about trust. How can we build trust? And it goes two ways. How do we focus on win-win scenario? How do we realize that we are interdependent? Our success is going to be dependent on the success of others. Now, whether it's our own team, because I know you've got a team, I've been speaking to one of them, or the customer and their team. We talk about transparency, sharing information, giving people honest feedback. If somebody's not helping you, help them. Hey, Graham, I'm on a podcast, but I don't want to do any work. Well, Fred, it ain't going to work like that. You're going to have to do something. You have to write some questions and get on screen, or get on audio. Having a future orientation and being comfortable with change. I mean, basically, they're the 6 elements of PQ that we can measure, we can understand, and we can prime people to use with all the best practice that's gone before.
I'm really fascinated. Obviously, we're in an era where we've been doing consultative sales for a long time. Is partnership sales, collaborative sales, an evolution of that, or is it part of that?
Yeah, for me, it's part of it. Consultative selling, we can trace it's back to the 90s, really, or late 80s, early 90s. Neil Rackham did all that research, realized best salespeople don't just try and close people and use manipulative techniques. They ask more questions. They understand need. They help the customer understand their need. So that's a fantastic foundation. And that's for me what it is. I wouldn't throw that away. I do train people in it. But then we can build on that to get them to be focused in on more value, and then those other elements. But it's absolutely, it's a building block. Without consultative selling and good questioning, I think people will struggle.
Are there telltale signs that somebody's in the wrong mindset or place to think about collaborative sales? An example of that, a very obvious one, is old school ABC. You know, when they said, you know what I'm talking about. For those
Yeah,
that
oh, yeah.
don't in the audience, always be closing. So you would go to a party and then you'd meet somebody and you'd get the power handshake and the card, and then it would be,
Yep.
they're closing you on something. It's like, hang on a second, we're just chilling, we're having a drink here. But they'll always be closing. They've been
It,
trained.
yeah, it is. It's 80s. It's 80 sales training. Glengarry, Glen
80s.
Ross, coffees for closers. Yeah, you've got to stand up
That
until you've made your
is
first
old
sale. That will allow you
school.
to sit down. It's like, yeah,
But there are
then
other
you
ways that, are there other things that people's, I mean, that's the obvious ones, but they're more subtle ones when you listen to somebody talking about their sales process. So actually, that's the symptom of something which is not aligned with the client.
the more subtle things now are that success now is about being more customer centric. You know, and everyone says this and so being buyer focused and all this. But for me, really, it's, well, if you're practicing what you preach, you'd be talking to them about their process. How do they buy? Where are they on their journey? Rather than saying, I have a sales process, here are the little blocks that my CRM says I've got to do, and I've got to move you through these as fast as I possibly can. And actually, if you'll stop talking, that'd be better for me because I can show you my demo and talk about myself. They're the things that which just don't work. It's going to take longer. And you know, as you say, the enterprise sales, all those people involved, you've got to work out, okay, so how is this organization operating? There'll be similarities. You'll know that typically I'll need to speak to these guys, I'll need to speak to them. And rather than kind of focus on yourself, it's help them do what they need to do. Because I'm guessing you might be speaking to a marketing guy, a sales guy, or somebody who says, I get podcasts, I really want it. You'll say, right, can you sign it off? Or no, we've got the processes, probably. You say, okay, well, typically the processes that companies like you would go through are, we'll need to get this person on board, this person on board. We'll have to explain it to them. And actually, a really good way of doing it is to do this, and you will guide them through that. That for me is an indicator that somebody really gets it, and somebody who's trying to assert themselves and push their agenda on somebody is somebody who's stuck in the past a little bit.
Great advice. Another one of those probably is when saying to a prospect or a buyer, are you the decision maker? That makes me laugh. And that was a different world. But people, you know, the difference between what you're talking about and the way some people are trained, and I've been trained like that, is that, you know, don't waste time on people who aren't decision makers. And therefore, ask them if they're the decision maker. Nobody likes to think that they're not a decision maker. And increasingly, I guess, in collaborative sales, everybody's involved at some level. Everybody has a stake in this, and therefore it's quite complex. And you can't alienate people early on in the journey by saying that you're not important in this.
They are, though. I mean, what I do in training is say, ditch the word decision maker. Stop thinking like that. Let's think about DMU, decision making unit, where all these people come together and they all have a say. Some may be stronger, some have a bigger influence, some might like you more than others. So that, or in American terminology, tends to be buying committee. But all of these people come together and they are all really key, because if you're not satisfying everybody and sort of helping them with a bit that they want out of the sale, they can stick a spanner in the works and they'll stop it moving forward. So rather than pretend that these people don't exist and go, oh yeah, I've got a really good contact here, it's embracing it. Right, I'm going to need to know lots of people here. I'm going to need to know what they want. I'm going to have to demonstrate they all get what they require from this. And that's good fun, because they might be contradictory. Oh, I want all the service, Graham. I want all the frills. I want all the bells, all the whistles, everything that you guys can possibly do for me. Of course you do, Fred. You're the sales director and you want the best output. Right, let me pass you across procurement. Right, I want it cheaper.
Yeah, that's right.
I want you to explain every single piece that you're doing, what it costs you, and I want you to take that out. And you're like, well, okay, I need to balance that.
But
Which
if we
is
can
why,
get into procurement, we're moving forward, Fred. That's the point, right? So we're moving this thing forward.
we are. Let's not pretend they're not going to get involved. You know,
Yeah.
and so again, it's a mature salesperson and somebody who says, look, this will go to procurement.
Yeah.
And the customer might not, oh God, do we have to involve them? Yes.
Yeah.
They
And I
will.
love it when customers work with you with procurement as well. They say, look, if we do this, it's got to go through this channel. And so let's make this easy for everybody and package it like this. And, that's when you've got a real collaboration, isn't it? That they understand how their own procurement works and it can actually hold them up if they have to push it through a certain channel.
It is, and what's interesting, I think salespeople do sometimes forget that customers might not really know. Again, go back to what you're doing. How often do people buy podcast services? It's not a
Not
regular
regularly. No.
purchase. I don't,
Yeah.
go and get your process out for buying podcasts. We don't have one. We didn't even know we were going to do this
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago. So it's right. Typically, this is what we do. And again, you're adding value. And again, salespeople sometimes struggle to get their head around this. You're actually not adding value in the stuff that you're selling, though you are. But it's actually helping them to buy the stuff you're selling. Is where, as a salesperson, you really sort of come to the fore. And that's where you, as the salesperson, add the value. Yeah, the organization and the solution, it does its stuff, but you, by helping facilitate the whole thing, that's where you'll really come into life. That's where you earn your bucks.
Fred Copestake, everybody. Where do we find out more about you?
LinkedIn is probably the best thing. We hang out on there quite a lot. It's got the profile. There's links off to all various sort of different websites. There's a book website. There's a company website. There's webinars, and I'm all about resource. I try and push a lot of resource out because I'm on a bit of a mission to try and make sales be perceived better. So I'll try and give a lot away. So yeah, LinkedIn is usually a good place to connect. Connect. Mention that you've heard me on this. That'd be good. And
Excellent.
yeah, if I can help, I would love to.
Look out for that name, Fred Copestake. Fred, thanks for coming on today and maybe clearing the air, resetting the balance, giving sales a good name where it really deserves to be. So I enjoyed that. Thanks a lot for coming.
No, a pleasure. Thanks for asking.